Hello, Bobcats. Mrs. Wallhite here. We're starting Chapter 10. We're looking at lesson number 1. Today we're going to multiply whole numbers and fractions. We already know it is a 5th grade standard, something we have to learn in 5th grade. I'm hoping at the end of today's lesson that you'll be able to find the part of a number and use a diagram to find part of a number. Why, Mrs. Wallhite? What's the big idea? Well, it'll help you visually see why the answer is correct. So again, I'm hoping the diagrams today will help you see why part of a number is correct. We'll be looking at parts of a whole. We'll have a whole number and we're taking pieces out of it, and we'll use that visual, that diagram, to understand why we have the correct answer. All right, what do we already know about fractions? Well, I'm hoping you already know the 3 is the numerator, right? And we already know that 4 is the denominator. We also know that 4 is the whole value. It's how many pieces are total, the whole amount. And we also know that 3 is the part. It's the piece. It's the amount that we have. So if I were to draw a visual of 3/4, or what does 3/4 look like, I would take 4, because we have 4 all together in the whole thing, and 3 parts out of 4 would be 1, 2, 3. So this visual picture, this diagram, this illustration is showing you what does 3/4 really mean. So if I come back to prior knowledge, what do you already know about fractions? Well, I know that 3 is the part we have. The numerator is the part we're dealing with. And I also know that 4 is the total amount, how much we have all together. All right, I'm hoping that in order for you to find part of a number using a diagram, you can use these steps. This is where you can pause the video and write these steps down. But step number 1, we have to write the whole number. So whatever number is given in the problem, maybe it's 18 or 12, we have to write that number. So step 1, just write the number. Step 2 is to create that bar diagram. This is where you actually make a diagram using that whole number. So 1, write the number. 2, create your bar diagram. Next is when we divide using the denominator. Remember, the denominator is the number on the bottom. So if I'm going to divide by the denominator, I would divide by 4 if it was 3/4. Okay, so step 1, we write that whole number. Step 2, we create the bar diagram. Step 3, divide using that number on the bottom, that denominator. Step 4 is where we're going to add the parts. And remember, the parts is the numerator. The top number of a fraction is the piece. It's the part. It's how much we have. Finally, at the end, we're going to see if our answer makes sense. Is it reasonable? And if it's not, we're going to go back to step 1. So again, write that whole number. Start with that. After you write the number, create a diagram. Divide by the denominator. Add up those numerator parts and see if it's reasonable. And after you write these in your notebook, then we'll go ahead and see what it looks like with the actual math. All right, Bobcats, let's dive in. All right, we're going to draw it. Layla threw 16 pitches in the first inning of a softball game. Of the pitches she threw, 3/4 of them were strikes. How many strikes did she throw in the first inning? Well, right away I notice there's that question mark. Right, we have to answer it. We have to have a response. We're trying to figure out how many strikes she threw in that first inning. Step 1, let's go ahead and write that whole number. Well, the whole number in the problem is 16. Step 2 is to create the bar diagram. Well, here's my bar diagram. Okay, step 3 is divide by the denominator. Well, the original fraction, it says 3/4, so I'm going to write it a little bit bigger down here so we can see it better. And the denominator says 4, so I'm going to go ahead and divide my bar diagram into 4 equal parts. So again, I'm going to use that number on the bottom, the whole amount. There's 4 all together. And I'm going to go ahead and divide my bar diagram into 4 equal sections or parts. Okay, step 1, I wrote my whole number. Step 2, I went ahead and drew the bar diagram. Step 3, I used that denominator to break up the bar diagram into 4 parts. Okay, step 4 is where I begin to count those 3. So if I take 16 and I divide by 4, because there's 4 equal parts of 16, I get 4. So 4, 8, 12, 16. So each of those parts have 4 in them. There's 4 groups of 4. So in order to count up or add, I need to add 3 parts out of the 4. Because the numerator says 3, that tells me that I'm going to add 3 parts of my bar diagram. So 4, 8, 12. And if you want to see that visually, I can write it down below and put 4 plus 4 plus 4. 3 parts out of all 4 of them. 12. So then the final step is to check and see if it's reasonable. So how many strikes did she throw in that first inning? She threw 12 strikes in the first inning out of 16, right? Because there's 16 pitches altogether. And it makes sense because if I counted by 4, 8, 12, 16, 3 of them is 12. So it makes sense. I have the right answer. Here we go, Bobcats. We're going to try it again. Find 1/3 of 15 using a bar diagram. So step 1, write that whole number. My whole number is 15. Okay, step 2 is where we draw the bar diagram. Okay, step 3. We look at the fraction. We're trying to figure out what is 1/3 of 15. So there's 3 parts all together. The whole amount is 3. So I'm going to use that denominator. I'm going to use the 3 to go ahead and break up my bar diagram into 3 parts. How many times will 3 divide into 15? 3, 6, 9, 12, 15. Well, there's 5 groups of 3. So I can go ahead and put 5 here, 5, 10, 15. So step 1, just to go back, we wrote our whole number, 15. Step 2, we created our bar diagram. Step 3, we broke it up into 3 because of the number on the bottom, because that's how much we have. Then the next step, step 4, is where we actually get to look at that top numerator and figure out what is 1 part of 3. So what is 1 of the 3? Well, 5 is in 1 of the 3 sections or 3 parts. So I believe the answer is 5. 1/3 of 15 is 5. Is that reasonable? 5, 10, 15. Yeah, 1 part out of 3 would be 5. Because if I added 5 3 times, it equals 15. I can move on. It's reasonable. All right, we're going to go ahead and draw a bar diagram to find each product. So we're trying to figure out 8, and we're going to break that up into sections of 4. So what is 1 part out of the 4 sections of 8? So step 1 stays the same. We write that whole number of 8. Step 2, we create the bar diagram. Step 3, use the numerator. That's how many we have in our whole. We have 4 pieces in our whole. Step 1, whole number. Step 2, bar diagram. Step 3, we went ahead and made those 4 parts out of 8. How many times does 4 divide into 8? Well, 4 times 2 is 8. So there's 4 groups with 2 in each group. 2, 4, 6, 8. Okay, now the next step, step 4, is figure out what is the part using that numerator. Well, the numerator says 1. So what is one part of that diagram we made? What is 1/4 of 8? Well, 1/4 of 8 is 2. Is it reasonable? Well, 2 times 4 does equal 8. So it makes sense that 2 is 1/4 of the number 8. All right, let's try number 8. Number 8 says, what is 1/2 of 16? Well, 16 is my whole number. Step 1, write your whole number. Step 2, draw your diagram. Step 3, I need to use that number on the bottom and put my bar diagram into 2 equal parts. So I'm going to go ahead and draw a line down the middle so I can figure out what's half of 16. Well, if I divide 2 into 16, I get 8, because 8 times 2 is 16. So there's 8 in this group and 8 in this group. So what is 1/2 of 16? Well, step 4 is use that numerator, figure out what one part is, and one part is 8. It makes sense because 8 plus 8 does equal 16. 8 is half of 16. All right, Bobcats, 25 times 2/5. So I need to figure out what is 2/5 of 25. So 25 is my whole number, step 1. Step 2, drawing my diagram, my bar diagram. Step 3, I'm using that number on the bottom to figure out that there's 5 sections, 5 in the whole. Now I got to figure out how much goes in each of those 5. Well, I know 5 divides into 25 5 times. So there's 5 groups with 5 in each group. All right, well, step 4 is to use the numerator, the part, and the numerator says 2 groups. How much is in 2 groups? Well, 5 plus 5, I can write it down here, is equal to 10. So I theorize the answer is 10. I think that 2/5 of 25 is 10. It's reasonable because if I add the 2 groups together, I do get 10. And so I know I have the correct answer. I can move on. All right, looking at number 10, we have 24 is our whole number this time. I'm still going to draw my bar diagram. I'm trying to figure out what is 3/4 of 24. Well, I'm going to use that 4, that number on the bottom, to break my bar diagram into 4 sections. I'm going to use the 3 to help me figure out the answer. But let's see, how many times will 4 divide into 24? Well, there's 6 in each of the 4 groups. 6, 12, 18, 24. And so I know I need to figure out 1, 2, 3 parts out of 4. What is 3/4 of 24? Well, 6 plus 6 plus 6 is 18. Let me fix that line there. So 18. So I theorize the answer this time is 18. It's reasonable because if I break 24 into 4 equal groups, I do get 6. And if I add 3 of them together, I got 18. So I know I have the correct answer. It works. Let's try some problem solving. Leon used a plant fertilizer on 4/7 of his potted flowers. If he has 28 potted flowers, how many did he use the plant fertilizer on? Okay, well, he used the plant fertilizer, and how much did he use it on? Well, he had 28. There's my whole number, step 1, potted flowers. I'm going to draw my diagram. That's his garden. That's his garden box. Okay, and then we're going to break that up. That denominator tells me that he broke it into 7 equal parts, or 7 pieces in the whole. 4, 5, 6, 7. I need to figure out how many times will 7 divide into 28. Well, 7 times 4 is 28. So I can go ahead and put 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, 24, 28. Okay, but the question asked me, how much fertilizer did he use in 4 parts out of the 7? 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, I can add 4 times to get my answer. So 4, 8, 12, 16. So the question asks, how many did he use plant fertilizer on out of the 28 potted flowers? I understand the answer to be 16 of his potted flowers got to get some fertilizer. It's reasonable because I know 4/7 of 28 is 16. And so I know I have the correct answer. Jeremy washed 3/8 of the plates from dinner. If 16 plates were used, how many plates did Jeremy wash? Well, I know the whole numbers. There's 16 plates. I'm making my diagram. There's 8 groups out of the 16. I'm going to break it up into 8 groups. So there's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now I need to figure out how many are in each of those 8 groups. Well, 8 times 2 is 16. So I can go ahead and put 2 in each of the groups. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, and 16. The question says, how many plates did Jeremy wash? Well, I know that in order to figure out how many plates he washed, I need to know how much is in 3 of the 8 groups. Well, 2, 4, 6. I established the answer is Jeremy washed 6 plates out of 16. It makes sense because he washed 3 parts out of 8. And if I add 2 plus 2 plus 2, which are the 3 parts, I get 6 plates altogether. Jeremy washed a total of 6. I can move on. It's reasonable. Hey, Bobcats, what did we learn today? Well, the first thing I learned is that you can take part of a number. You can figure out what part of a number is by using a visual diagram, a bar diagram. And sometimes when we use a bar diagram, you can clearly see how much is in each of those parts and why it makes sense. So today, when you're finding part of a number, I want you to go ahead and use those bar diagrams. Use that bottom denominator to divide it into parts. Then figure out how many parts you have to count up or add. All right, thank you for your attention, Bobcats. Have a great day.